Welcome to the Digital Rapport Podcast. I'm Jatinder, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about something interesting. We're going to talk about why some experts can't really explain what they sell. And it's not because they lack confidence or they're not brilliant at what they do. It's because they've not been shown how to structure their products and services in an offer that can actually be beneficial to them and something that can be used to help explain and sell their core products and services. Because they've never been shown how to structure their expertise and package up their knowledge and wisdom into a clear offer that would resonate with the people that actually need it. So one of the things that I've seen over the years, and this happened many, many times, is when we get some expert that we work with, they're absolutely brilliant at what they do, but they don't really know how to package their knowledge and information into a way that can actually be used to sustain what they're trying to do. And this is a common thing, and I've seen this happen a lot over the last 20 years. Almost all brilliant expert people do when they try to actually translate what they do online. A lot of the time, it doesn't come out the way they thought it was going to be, which makes it challenging for them to actually then grow and connect with an audience online. But what's interesting is that the deeper the expertise, the harder it becomes for them to actually be able to explain what they do because they're so in it, they're so good at what they do that sharing how they break it down, what the meta model is, meta program is, and how they would actually teach that to others or share that with others becomes a very hard thing for them to do. One of the reasons this happens is because I found that a lot of heart-centered coaches, consultants, they are not marketers, they're not salespeople. They are very good at what they do. They just want to get on with teaching, they just want to get on with healing, they just want to help the other person. And that often means that they shy away from kind of almost standing in the limelight and sharing why they're so great at what they do. So it kind of works against them, but they don't mean to do it. It's just that that's the nature of the game. They're humble to what they do. And usually nowadays online, the person who makes the loudest noise seems to be the one that gets heard the most. I've had similar challenge myself because for many, many years, I would just go on and do what I do. And, when you're kind of just in the craft of something, you don't actually realize how good you are at it because it just seems normal to you. You've been doing it for such a long time. It's something you dedicated your life to. You learned, you spent hours, hundreds and thousands of hours, years practicing, doing, getting better and better over time. That to you as an individual, it seems normal. It's like, that's what I just do, right? But to somebody who's not in that space, somebody who needs that service, to them, it's gold dust. To be able to share that knowledge and information with other people, it's so, so valuable to them that they would actually pay for that knowledge and information. And just being an expert in what people do, sometimes they don't share that. They don't put it in a way that makes it meaningful enough for other people to realize what it is that they're actually doing. And most often that can work against them. But at the end of the day, they are very, very good at what they do. I've encountered this kind of challenge quite a lot. I mean, I get brand new coaches coming to me. I get people who are well established at what they do. They're so, so amazing at what they do. They've just gone by the kind of older ways of doing things where they might be charging by the hour because, they've come out of the job place or work market where you do get paid by the hour. So their natural understanding is that, okay, when they're going to do these things for other people, the way to charge for it is by the hour. But they haven't learned to package that knowledge and information into packages. So not doing it on an hourly basis, but to package it over a certain period of time and to do it in such a way where they could price it well so that they're not undercharging, so that they can make a living from what they do. And it all comes down to the way you price it, you package it, the kind of value that you stack onto the service, and then how you actually put that out there to the marketplace so they can get what it is that you do. One of the things you got to bear in mind is that until you start to value yourself, others out there won't value you. It's just one of those kind of weird esoteric laws that when you get confident and actually start to acknowledge from a humble place how good you are at something that you do, then the universe and other people around you also start to notice that. It's a strange thing, but I've seen it happen so many times. I get tons of customers, tons of coaches that come to me, similar scenario. They don't have the packages, they don't have the services in place. They're very, very, very good at what they do. They just don't know what to do, how to structure it in a most efficient way that works well for them. So most often when people leave the workplace, that's the kind of mentality that they go forward with. They spend the kind of hours for money, right? And what happens is that coaches, because they want to serve so much, they put a lot of energy and effort in what they do. Some of them can end up getting exhausted, worked out, burnt out, really stressed and tired because they're doing so much but for so little. And that's the truth about it. The reason they're getting burnt out is because they're doing so much for that little. They've gone out, they pitched it, they might put the service in for, a couple hundred quid, let's just say. And that couple of hundred quid is turned into weeks and they're still doing the same thing and it becomes a drag. It becomes unfinished business in their mind. It becomes subconscious stress and pressure. And they do this for a while. And if they do that for a while, it becomes the norm. And when it becomes a norm, they get stuck in that scenario. And when you're stuck, you don't always see a way out. So you think that's how it's done. You think that's how everybody else is doing it. But you have to pause, you have to stop, and you have to reflect on what it is you're doing and think, is what I'm doing actually serving me now? The products and services that I have, are they benefiting? They're definitely benefiting other people, but is this structure helping me now? And if it's not, you got to look at it. Most of the time, it's a case of raising your prices, and one of the kind of misconceptions is that if I raise my price, these people are not going to be able to afford it. That's kind of not your issues, right? Like, I don't look at it in a bad way. People who need it, really need it, they will do whatever they need to do in order to get themselves out of something. So if your service can help and serve them, if they can see how it can help and serve them, how they can see the value in what you offer, there's no way that they wouldn't go for it. When you look at it that way, one of the tips I could give you is that you can have something called a product ladder, a value ladder, different services available for people at different stages of wherever they're in that problem. There could be people can't afford your services. So if they can't afford your one-to-one coaching, why not have something where they can do something in the self-study? I mean, if you make a self-study course, you've created it once, you've put it online, selling the same thing over and over again. So why not give that away at a reasonable price that is affordable for people? They could get on with it. What we've also seen is that that's how most people could start. They'll do that, they do it for a while, and they'll try it, and they realize that they do need that one-to-one service. And hence they will then reach out to you to actually get one-to-one services, which are the higher tiered, higher priced products and services. Most of the time we've seen that if you don't change that structure, the coach or the consultant can get burnt out because they're doing so much for so little. What's also interesting is that, before any kind of packages are put together, the coach or the consultant could look at that as a negative and think, how can I package what I do into something? Because to them, it feels restrictive. Like, I've got all these skills and knowledge and I'm putting it into a package. Like, how does that work? Right. And it's a valid concern because they haven't seen any other way. They don't know how to do it. They've been doing what they've been doing for such a long time. They don't realize the power of what's possible when you do actually package up your knowledge and information into a packaged service. Now, most of them will go into like a one-to-one scenario. They'll spend an hour and they'll kind of just wing it, or I wouldn't say wing it, but they know what they're doing. They'll basically take that hour to work on an issue or a challenge that the person is having and then walk them through and work them through that, right? Now, the packaging of your services, you can have multiple packages. You can have entry level, you can have mid-range, you can have high end, high ticket as they refer to. You can have the different ranges, which allow you to have a conversation with people, find out where they are, and then say, you know what, this particular package will be best for you because it covers X, Y, and Z, right? And that's the whole key, is to identify what that looks like. What does that customer journey look like? Where is that individual right now? Where can you take them on your transformational journey? And then mapping that out so that it can actually be split and put into a way that allows your clients to work with you based on where they are at the level they can afford to work with you as well. What's interesting is that when they do actually put into packages, it frees them up because now you're able to utilize your skills in a much better way because you can walk people through a particular path and a journey. Sometimes we refer to as a signature system or methodology, where you have a set of steps and processes that you can walk people through based on whatever it is that you work, help solve the problem for. And then the journey can be seen and mapped, and that can help people out as well. So it's very important to be able to structure your offers. They call it offers, but it's a there's a way to do it, a way to go about it. Because if I approached you, I would say to you, if I needed your products or services, what would you do? There's a s- process or steps that you take in order to get me from where I am to that fixed or resolved state. And those steps is what you're looking for. If you break it down, you'll see that there are meta steps within that bigger process, and that all of that can be broken down into an X step process. What's also interesting is that in this space, a lot of people not sure what to do, where to go, how to go about it, especially the technology. The technology in some cases can be very overwhelming because it's how do you go about doing this? How do you put it together? One of the things I've seen over the years, and I've been doing this for like 20 years now, right, is this whole kind of process of doing it with someone, working with them to figure it out and helping them, coaching them, guiding them, empowering them really to not be in a place where they're doing it by themselves, but to actually say, no, you've got a partner to work with, you got a tech partner to work with, you got a strategic partner to work with, you got a coach or a mentor that can help and guide you and work with you. Now, you might be familiar with this. There's kind of three ways that usually people work. There's like the do it yourself version where you're pretty much doing everything yourself. There's then done for you when other people will come in and do it for you. And then there's a done with you approach. What I found is that with the coaching space, the done with you approach is a lot better. So, for example, I would work with a coach to help them to set up their online systems, to help them figure out their packages, to work with them on a one-to-one basis, but over a period of time in order for them to get out of that initial stage and get to a stage where they are putting packages together and where they are actually able to sell those products and services in a way that helps them free up their time and actually make money out of what they do. When I first sit down with someone to figure out what their offer is going to be, one of the first things I do is actually show them my methodology, my digital SIMAC method, which is like a 9-step process. I've got two versions of it. There's a 9-step and there's a 12-step version. But depending on who I'm speaking to, I will alternate between them, right? But generally, what I do is sit down with them and I show them the methodology and the steps and the path. Originally, I used to just make websites for people. That's how I started. And over the years, I looked at who was doing well, who wasn't doing well. What is it that they're doing? Why are the people that are doing well doing well? What's different about their setup to everybody else? And over the years, I realized that there were certain things that you could do. There's certain steps. And then when there were certain steps, I looked at it and thinking, well, what's the most efficient way to do this? What's, as Bruce Lee would call, economy of motion, which is basically the fastest, most efficient path from point A to point B. Now, in the martial art world, that's a straight punch in an ideal situation, right? Why move around in different ways if you can achieve something in a lot faster, more efficient way? So economy of motion is important. When I looked at this and studied it over time, I realized there were a number of steps. There were things that could be put together. But then what was more important was the order. And most of the time, people have got a lot of this stuff in place, but it's random and ad hoc and it's all over the place. But if you had a step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this, all the way so that you end up with a full, efficient business within which you have your products and offers and your business model, everything identified, then it just makes your life easier. It takes the guesswork out of what you're trying to do and just means that the person you're speaking to has a lot more clarity. I've had situations where I've shared my steps with someone, I've shown them the path, and just looking at that path has helped them get clarity in what they're supposed to be doing. And they say, you know what, let me get this bit sorted and I'll come back to you with the rest of the things. So having a pathway, showing people visually how you can actually help them is a very powerful thing to do. Having some sort of signature methodology or process, which you can share with other people, will actually stand you out from your competitors because your competitors are most likely not doing that. But if you're able to show the pathway, it creates a lot more credibility in how you do things. And, your customers and clients will look at it and think, oh, they've got structure. And in business, that kind of structure is very important. And it's something that helps you create trust and loyalty and respect because you have a pathway and a methodology to do something which is proven. So ideally, just in case you're wondering, like, where do you even start with this? The first step is always, what's the problem you're solving in the industry? Your expertise you developed over time. You're very good at it. Somewhere along the line, you figured out how to do something in a very efficient way. That becomes your skill. That becomes your core competency, right? So being able to identify what is the actual problem that you're solving is the first step. When you can get clarity on what is that you're solving, who you're helping, how does your solution help out, that's the starting point. Because then you can look at, is anybody else doing something similar to this? And if they are, why is my one better than this? And that allows you to then have your solution or your methodology. And once you have those things, that is the foundation and basis from which you can work on and move forward with. Because most coaches do price by the hour, they don't really have a sustainable revenue model. Now, that is one of the things that we help people do, is unpack that to say, well, what are the different services and offers you got? What are your different skills? How can you actually package that? And when you package that, how can you make a revenue model out of that? So say you had a package, right? And I advise customers that as a minimum, your package should be at least $1,500 minimum, right? 3 grand is great. 5 grand is absolutely amazing. And 10 grand and 20 grand and so forth and so forth. And all of this is possible. It all depends on, one, what the value you bring to a table, and two, is what level are you playing at? What I mean by that is, I've seen this happen so many times where the same service, this is really strange and weird, but the same service can be offered to different types of tier groups. Like a beginner, right? You could do the same thing for a beginner and charge them low amount of money. You could do the same thing for someone who's already been in business, but charge them mid-range price and do the same thing, and it's a lot better. And you can get someone who's at the top of the game and you could charge them top tier prices, exactly the same thing. Yeah. And you could get them results and you can make a lot of money. Now, it might sound strange that why is that the case? But usually it comes down to your subconscious thinking. It comes down to where you position yourself in that kind of hierarchy of monetary value. Because if you say, you know what, I just want to work with startups, then that's going to have its own set of challenges. If you say, I'm going to work with existing businesses, that's going to have their own set of challenges, but they're already moving. So it might make it easier. So if you, for example, the stuff that you're doing with the startups, because you've done it for such a long time, you're so good at it. If you just park that and say, you know what, I'm going to work with people who've already got existing businesses, they're making a certain amount of turnover, I'm going to do exactly the same thing for them, but I'm going to price at a higher value and higher rate. And you go into that business or you go work with those individuals and people and you implement those processes, you're going to get amazing results because they're already on it. So that level that you're playing at changes. A company that's been around for years and they're making 100K, 200K, 500K, a million, right? They're in a very different structure to someone who's just starting up. I know it's common sense. I know that's the case, but we don't think like that when we get into business. We might be used to a certain range. We might go out there to a certain demographic or group of people and price it in accordance with that. Like, single moms may be a challenge. It may not be a challenge, but then you might have that high flyer single mom, who's killing it, and you provide your service to them and they don't even blink an eye when you tell them your prices. So the pricing structure and where you're aiming for and who you're working with can have a massive effect on your business. But what I've seen is that this works in growth stages. Someone who's new will play at a certain level. As that person, and I've seen this happen so many times, as that person becomes confident in themselves and their offer, they got proven methodology. And as they get better at what they're doing, they start to value themselves more. Therefore, they're able to price better and higher as well. So it's one of those things where it's an abundant world. Depending on your thinking and your subconscious thoughts, you are playing at a certain level. You're playing in a certain field. So becoming aware of what that is, the pros and cons. I'm not saying one is better than another. That's not the case, because you can take the same stuff you do and apply it to a different industry and totally smash it in a different way. So that scenario changes. But what's important is your confidence and your self-belief in what you do, in your own skills and your own products and services. And when you know that actually what I'm doing works. Now, generally, if you have something and you apply it and it works for one person and it works for two people and it works for three people, you've got a proven concept there now, right? So now it becomes, well, okay, how do I get this out to more people? So the level you play at, the target you're aiming for, can have a very different effect on your revenue model and the amount of money you actually make as a coach, right? So if this resonates with you and you're one of those people that are great at what you do, you know you got this challenge, you can't clearly explain what it is that you do, or you don't have the proper packages, right? The one thing that you can do to get that going is pause. Just stop for a moment. Just stop and think about all those things and look at it and say, okay, great, this is where I am. But the first thing you could do is raise your price. So say you're doing hourly, right? Just raise your prices. Yeah, double what you're doing, right? And just do that. That one thing will make such a shift in your thinking, in your perspective, in your business. If you are doing the hourly stuff, if you're doing packages, increase your prices. Just do that. Just do that one thing, and you'll see a difference. And that's a good way to start. So just pause, reflect, right? Have a think about it and increase your prices. And then ask yourself, what is it that you want to be doing? How much do you want to be making at the end of the month? And then work backwards. So if you want to be making 10 grand a month, you work backwards. You say, how do I actually make 10 grand? Is that 4 packages at 2,500? Is that 2 packages at 5 grand? Like, what does that look like? And once you have that kind of structure in your mind, it helps your mind focus in and just trying to sell those packages, if that makes sense. You basically end up doing more with less. So that's one of the things you can do, is just change your pricing initially and then see how you can start to do the next bits. And if that's something you want to have a conversation about, feel free to reach out. Happy to help and guide on that. But a lot of people that haven't got packages, the initial assumption is that I can't package what I do. It can't be done. I can't break it down to steps and processes. It just can't be done. I've worked with hundreds of coaches, and through various different connections, come into contact with thousands of people. And we know that it can be broken down. You can actually create a method and a process and a methodology from what you do. So if in your mind you're thinking, no, it's not possible, I would encourage you to think, what if it was possible? And if it was possible, what could that look like? Just to reframe the thinking within one's mind. Because saying no is a limitation, but saying, how can I do it, changes the way you see things. If there's any kind of reservation in your mind about that, just look into it. Just reframe the question and see, if you did have packages, what could they look like? What are the different levels of packages you can have, and how you might go about putting your skills and knowledge into that sort of framework. So that's why some of the smartest people I know are the worst at selling what they do. Because one, they're very good at what they do. They're so deeply embedded and they just want to serve. And two, they don't realize or how valuable the skills that they have are to other people, because to them it's normal. They're doing this day in, day out. So you don't value it as much kind of internally. And when you do start to value what you do, the universe starts to value what you do as well. Other people will look at that and they'll resonate with it and they'll appreciate it and applaud it. You'll start to attract a different type of crowd. You are very good at what you do. There are ways to package that. If you're not too sure, feel free to reach out and we can have a conversation about it. And if there's any other questions you might have about this thing, feel free to get in touch. And on that note, signing out. See you on the next one. Thank you very much.